Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Simon of Savidge Reads and it's book club time, which means I'm joined by the joy and delight that is Melanie Sykes.
Hello, love. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm by an open window and it's windy. I haven't got a wind machine. So if you see my hair going like this, you know why.
When we first recorded, I thought you did have a wind machine. I
I know you did. Because I'm that vain.
Well, as you know, I am that vain because I messed you in. I did my hair and look like Princess Diana, apparently. Because she comes up in our latest read, which is Lady
She does.
by Glenconner.
So many people had recommended this book to me, so I thought let's do it for us. And it didn't disappoint.
No, it did not disappoint. But before we talk about that, I just want to ask, you're off on holiday. Would you like the viewers to recommend some books for you?
Oh yeah, that would be brilliant actually.
I'm sure a book parcel will be descending on you at some point around your forthcoming birthday, so everyone wish Melanie a happy birthday too.
Yeah, 50 next week.
So, Lady in Waiting, what was it that appealed to you particularly about this book? Are you a fan of The Crown and are you a fan of the Royals?
I'm intrigued by the Royals. I watch the TV series, obviously. I used to absolutely idolise Princess Diana. And so I guess she was my first interest into the royal family as a young person. I'm fascinated with how the protocol is and how it all works. I love a bit of gossip, if I'm honest, as well, and this book is full of juicy stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I found it really, I was a bit unsure at first because I've got I don't know how I feel about the royal family, but I really enjoyed it. And we should say the book is sort of sold on the premise that Anne Glenconner was Princess Margaret's Lady in Waiting, which I thought was what actually most of the book was going to be about. And I think what surprised me in a really pleasant way was the fact that it wasn't. Actually, it's kind of a social history and commentary. When the book sort of starts, she's talking about like the history and the fact that she was a huge disappointment because she tried very hard in the womb to be a boy, but it and then also she had sisters, and you see that sort of how that lineage sort of creates actually quite complex relationships in a family, and a family relationship is complicated enough without all of that pressure. And I found that quite from the off, almost she was sort of set a kilter because she didn't know quite where she fitted in.
Yeah, and she doesn't inherit anything, does she?
No.
Only the boys do.
That's one thing that I really found quite intriguing about the book, was I didn't realise that she was going to have to work. I automatically assumed she wouldn't have to, but she did. Her mum set up her own pottery and then she went around the world selling it.
Yeah, I mean, these are the key things for me about her as well, is that she was a real go-getter and she was fearless. At a time where women weren't potentially doing what she was doing. She was traveling the world as a pottery saleswoman with stuff in a suitcase and ended up in New York. And I loved that she was actually in the lower classes of the boat, but she knew people in high places, so she could dine every night and drink champagne and have a fabulous time above deck, but would go find herself, you know, in the bowels of the boat later on. So she was sort of grounded in so many ways, but had access to the upper echelons as well, and her ability to balance those makes her the character that she is.
I thought it was a very open book. She wasn't trying to portray herself in a certain light.
No, and she wasn't afraid to expose a few people as well.
Yeah, like
warts and all.
What was going on with that? Her and her sister being photographed by Prince Philip in their nurses' outfits.
I know, and nobody even questioned it. And this older guy's coming in and taking pictures of young girls, and it was never explained. The mother was just like, "Yes, of course, take pictures of them. It's absolutely fine." You just think, "Oh my god!" And it was never addressed.
One question that we did get actually from someone called Tanya was, "How would we have felt?" I like the fact she included me in this as well. If we'd had to be debutantes in that class, can you imagine having to be in that sort of society where you're going out and having to woo men and your sort of family depends on it? I mean, how is that still happening so recently?
The thing is, if you're born into it, you've got nothing to compare it to. So obviously it would be absolutely horrendous for people like you and I, because it's so against the grain. I mean, at one point, her father wants her to marry one of his mates, and he's like 100 years old. And she's like, well, we've got nothing in common. And he wants her to marry this guy because he's a good shot and he likes going shooting with him. And she's a teenager, essentially. And this guy's, what, in his 40s?
Yeah. Or older.
And she manages to wangle a way out of that one. I mean, it's absurd now that was okay, that was a totally reasonable suggestion, and she was lucky it wasn't enforced.
What made me laugh is when she says no, he says something about, oh, well, he's got a younger brother who's still only like 3 years younger, but you could have him instead. But I just loved as well, she's really good at creating a real instant vision of people. Like she talks about one of her relatives who gives up talking to his wife directly and talks through the Labrador. It's like you instantly know that kind of person. We should talk about Princess Margaret, because I've always been a fan of Princess Margaret, because I felt like she was an absolute one, and I would have really liked to, when I used to drink, have a good old drink with her and a chat. But the love between them is quite, it's never sycophantic. It felt to me like a genuine, admiring, mutual relationship.
I got that they teased each other massively and would play tricks on each other, and obviously the bond deepened and deepened, but it wasn't, I don't think it was mushy in the way it was written, though, do you?
No, I never felt it was sycophantic. I think what I loved was it felt quite like they weren't equals, but they tried to be as equal as possible. Like you said, when they would play tricks on each other. So Princess Margaret hated sand in her shoes, but yet Anne still forces her to go and have pictures with lifeguards who they're very yeah. And so in return, Princess Margaret then makes her hold a koala that then weasels over her. And just like that, I just thought, but that's what I loved about it. It felt like you were seeing the barriers coming down. And I thought that was I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really interesting about friendship, and the fact that Princess Margaret was there for her through a lot and vice versa. But I just loved Princess Margaret. Like every time she was in the book, I just couldn't get enough of her.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird at the moment because Princess Margaret feels like she's a really hot topic right at the moment. And I don't know if it's because the last season of The Crown was really heavily around her and being played by Helena Bonham Carter, so that's just brought it all up again. Then I've just watched a documentary on her as well. She is a fascinating character. She's not necessarily somebody I warm to, but I'm intrigued by. Yeah. Because even her closest, nearest and dearest still had to call her mom, and you still couldn't sit down until she sat down, and all of those things. Even Anne Glenconner couldn't sit down until she sat down, even though they had that bond for decades and decades. So she still kept people in their place. And for me, that sort of knocks me a little bit, that she still kept that, because she wanted to have a normal life, but at the same time she quite liked all that protocol.
I think it was the life she was accustomed to, isn't it, as well? That's that sort of... But
but you can drop those for certain people. She didn't want to.
No, that's true. And I did love, though, from the off, that their friendship was quite funny in the fact that there's a picture that you see in the book. Oh, and it had pictures in. I love a book with pictures.
Love pictures.
I've gone straight past them, but I do love a book with pictures. There's one where Princess Margaret is looking down at her feet, Anne's feet, and it's because she was jealous that Anne had silver sandals when they were about 5.
Oh!
Just little moments like that I really loved. The book also, though, does have quite a lot of darkness, which I wasn't expecting. And at first, it's partly through her marriage to Colin, who is an absolute one. But I still loved it. Oh
my God. Their honeymoon. Hello?
Well, now, this is quite funny, and this isn't the question I prepared you for, but it's because I wanted to see your reaction, because Marky asked us if we'd gone on honeymoon and that had been our first day, what would we have done? Well,
oh my God, this is quite a revealing question. So basically, it's just to say, so she goes away, she goes to Paris, and Colin takes her to watch a live sex show. I mean, the question is, would I have got involved?
No, that's not the question. It was, what would we have done if our husbands had taken us to that on the first day? I would have been like, I think this probably isn't going to work.
Yeah, she takes it in a stride, doesn't she? And I love it because one of the couple says to her, would you like to join? And she said, the sentence, I don't know what she says, but it's so polite. It's, no, actually, I'd rather not. And it's just so proper in a really improper situation. So, yeah, it's shocking.
As well as being this flamboyant, incredible character, he's quite tortured and he's full of anger and can be incredibly difficult. And there is a point where she wants to leave, but her mother's like, sorry, you've just got to deal with it. And that I found, I just can't imagine how that must be to be in society where that is seen as so forbidden. Like, I've been divorced, and it was quite liberating. But to imagine that I would have had to stay in that marriage, I don't know how she did it.
I don't know how she did it. I really don't, because he clearly had like bipolar disorder or something, but that was never diagnosed. So it's difficult to empathise with somebody when you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But she loved him, though. That's the thing as well. She really loved him, so she would not forgive him his infidelities, but she would ignore them. She would deal with his tantrums. I mean, I've never heard of anybody being banned from British Airways for life. For having a tantrum on the fly. And that scene alone is wonderful because Princess Margaret is there going, darling, just ignore it. And they're taking him off the fly.
And she can see him out the window with the police, and Princess Margaret's like, ignore his hand.
I mean, you want a best mate like that.
You do.
In those scenarios, it's like, no, enough is enough now. Just let him be taken away and let's head home. You know, it's just... Then, you know, that she shows she's a good friend there. But she does put up with a lot of crap from him, and she obviously loves him. She's got 5 children with him, so she just tolerates it all. And it's sad as well because the children have their own issues, not surprisingly coming from this kind of setup, but also, you know, what you inherit genetically as well. And the heartbreak that goes with the children as well is staggering. It's amazing she's still got a sense of humour. It's amazing she's still sort of stoic and as strong as she is. I mean, she is to be admired for sure.
Yeah, I found the bits about her children particularly. I mean, she has an older son, Charlie, who gets involved in drugs. So we won't give away too much on that one. But I found that a very heartbreaking tale. I normally, as soon as I see drugs in a book, almost switch off. It's just something I don't want to read about. But I found that a very honest, open discussion around that and the perils of it, and also the repercussions later on. The one that genuinely left me in tears was her son Henry, who marries, comes out as gay, and then gets HIV. That literally floored me.
I don't know how one person can take all of that, and as a mother, it's just excruciating.
Yeah.
But also the press intrusion, like people at funerals, like climbing over gravestones to take pictures. I mean, living around that. So she wasn't necessarily famous, but she was, you know, fodder for Hello magazine and all of that. And the tabloids were interested in her children, weren't they?
Well, that was an interesting thing I thought throughout the book, because sometimes she did flirt with fame in the fact that, like, she would do kind of household spreads. But then also it's just how the press becomes so intrusive. And like I said, I think the things that I really admired about it was how much history we saw, like early on when she talks about Hitler's jars and her and her sister planning on how they're going to kill Hitler. Like things like that. And it's a side to World War II that I hadn't really thought about. And I love that kind of came to the fore of the book. And then also she talks about the IRA bombing. She talks about, obviously, the HIV and AIDS epidemic of the 80s. And you do just think, wow, like, what these people have lived by. And also, of course, now she's lived through a blinking pandemic. She's seen it all.
She really has seen it all, hasn't she? From a position with, like you say, she's had some privileges. So when drama has happened, the royal house has been able to sort of fast track her to her son getting the right hospital and getting into surgery. So she's been through it all from a really unusual perspective, and that's what makes it so interesting, because it's not the norm, is it?
Yeah, and also I think I wasn't expecting to feel the wave of emotions that I did. In one part, like absolutely laughing my head off at, you know, all the shenanigans that she gets involved with, but then also just seeing the absolute heartache, and, you know, especially with the sons, like, you're not supposed to outlive your children. It's just not what you're meant to do. And to have this sort of such a stoic sense of, like, even when one of her sons is ill, when Christopher has the accident, and she is told by that man, isn't she, turn the machine off, he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life, the end. And she's like, nah, not doing that. And just her determination and grit, I found her really, really remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it. Yeah, I mean, she was amazing. I would do the same, though. I mean, everything she was saying, and she looked into research and tried to work out how to pull him out of it. She was going to leave no stone unturned in terms of getting him out of that coma. And I would like to believe I would do the same.
Yeah.
As a mother.
Yeah.
I think you naturally would do that. She is quite matter of fact about all of it, though. That's the other thing about her. You know, she doesn't. Maybe she did mull over things obviously more deeply in life, but in the book, it's pacey, it moves on. She's quite matter of fact. These are the way things are, and this is what I did, and I guess that's her personality. But she's been through a hell of a lot, and it didn't really stop, did it? And even when her husband died, the shock of the will, and that, wow. And she still doesn't know whether he did it on purpose or he was kind of bullied into it or whatever.
No, I found that really, really, like, shocking. And it's almost like, it's one of those books where you couldn't make it up.
No.
If this was fiction, I wouldn't believe it. You feel like she is whispering in your ear all of this.
Yeah.
I've really, really, really enjoyed.
It's really interesting, and not for me as a woman, and a woman getting older as well. She's in her 80s now. She's still living a very, very full life.
Yeah.
And traveling with friends and all the rest of it. It's inspiring, is what it is. For a woman like me. I've just realised what we didn't talk about is Mystique. Mystique is a huge part of this book, because I got married on Mystique. My first marriage was this. I've actually been, I stayed at the Cotton House. They mentioned it's the only hotel on the island. And the reason we chose it was because of the reasons that they say in the book, is that you cannot come to the island unless you're staying somewhere, so the press can't get on it. And so I was able to go there, get married, have my honeymoon, and get home without the British press knowing about it. And that's why I chose it.
That's amazing.
It's very beautiful.
Is it? Because I can't imagine what it must be like to just be able to buy an island like that for 45.
No, I know. But also, not just to buy it, but to really put it into motion and plough your money into the people that live there. So we didn't go in there and destroy it.
No, I thought he was respectful of it, and he really wanted to make life better for the people living there. Apart from when the Queen comes and they make everyone dress in Victorian costumes.
That was an accident, though, wasn't it? Was it some faux pas of some description?
I mean, the Queen's like, oh, I didn't realise they were behind in the times. But also, it's one of the rare places. I didn't realise the Queen doesn't swim very much, but it's one of the rare places that she does.
Yeah, because she's not going to be seen, yeah. I mean, I've just watched a documentary about Princess Margaret, and her husband said he didn't call it Mystique, he called it Mistake. Because they all had a bit of a wild time over there, didn't they?
I just think, oh, we didn't give you a wedding present. Here's some land on our island. It doesn't have a house on it yet, but there you go, have that.
I mean, what a wonderful gift.
If anyone wants to get that for Melanie for her birthday, feel free. In the position that I get to stay.
You'll be my first guest.
Speaking of beaches, the other bit that I just wanted to mention quickly is I forgot how much I loved the section where the Queen Mum wants to go and sit at the beach house that they gave to the royal family, and she's like, it's not like a normal beach hut, it's like a big house. And they're all like, oh, don't go down there, the nudists are down there.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, I can't wait, I shall get the corgis to bite their bottoms. Generations on, Camilla, who I am a little bit of a fan of, goes down there with Judi Dench and has a very similar experience. Just
I mean, that's the thing about it as well, is like you make assumptions. People make assumptions about other people all the time based on their position in society, but we're all just human.
Yeah, and it reminds.
And I think that really comes across.
Yeah. Moving on to our choice for August.
So it's Queenie. I've gone for Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. It's hilarious. I've already started it. It's absolutely laugh out loud funny. Some of the dialogue in it, oh my God, it's brilliant. So that is the next one.
And this is a book that I first read, I think when it was in proof form back in 2018. So I'm going to listen to the audio book, which I've heard is amazing. But it's also one of the first books that I sent Melanie because I thought she would really enjoy it. And I think there's going to be lots and lots to talk about in this one too. So we'll be back talking about that on August the 27th. Get that in your diaries, people. So that's it from me and Melanie for this month. But we will be back, as we said, on August the 27th to talk about Queenie. So as always, Melanie, it's been a treat and a joy.
It has. Thank you so much.
You've kept me going through this pandemic.
Oh, thanks, darling. Thank you.
Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And from me. See you again.
Bye.